As for introductions, I'm Coral Minchie. I work for the Georgia Wildlife Federation, and we are the ones hosting this career series. And today, hi, Dr. Samples. Today, our speaker is going to be Alan. He owns Alan's Armory, but I don't want to give too much of a background because that's what he'll be talking about today. So whenever you are ready, you can take it over.
Well, thank you. Well, first off, thank you guys for taking time out of your schedule to come here and listen to me. Thank you, Coral, for inviting me and Georgia Wildlife Federation. It was just, it's pretty awesome. A year ago, I had no idea who they were or what they were about. And then just by, the grace of God, we got hooked up and it's just been growing from there. So I'm really appreciative. So it's very humbling when somebody asks you to speak about yourself. I'm not a big I guy or me guy. I think it's everybody else involved, but so I appreciate that. What I'm going to do is, so you're not looking at me for the whole half hour or so, I'm going to switch over to PowerPoint and just kind of talk about kind of how I got into this industry. What prompted me to want to get into it, and then some things about the industry, and then also kind of if you want to get into the industry, kind of some things, pitfalls I've learned, and all that. So I'm going to switch over. All right, so let me start. Okay, so why did I get in this industry? So when I was asked to do this, I kind of had to think about it a little bit and go back to my childhood and really put some thought into it. But what I remember is, as a young child, it wasn't, back in, I'm 56, so it wasn't the guns a-blazing kind of movies as much as there are now, and all the violent video games and all that stuff. But I just remember, I'm a really avid reader, and I just gravitated towards either history. I was a big World War II buff, or firearms. I remember, when I would get, things I always wanted for Christmas were always toy guns, and me and my friends would always play soldier, and just realized at a young age that's something I wanted to do, was be in the military. So I found out just at that young age, just liking firearms. I started hunting as a child. Like I said, I had no mentor. There weren't programs like you guys are doing now to bring people in, young people in, and educate them on hunting. My mom got me. I started out with the old Red Ryder BB gun, and then I progressed up to a Crossman 760 pellet gun, and then actually into a Benjamin. So all I had were pellet guns. And I don't come from a hunting background or hunting family. My dad was actually an oceanographer. So he's very book smart, but just didn't, wasn't a hunter. We had no guns in the house. So I just would come home from school or on the weekends, get my gun and go out, and I would squirrel hunt is primarily what I did. That's about all you can kill with a pellet gun. Um, but I did know at that age that, when I killed it, I brought it home. I field dressed it, and my mom would actually cook it up for us. So I did know that part. As I got the other thing, I said I knew I wanted to be in the military. There's two things I always just grew up in my mind, was joining the military and being in law enforcement. So I'll never forget, made that decision in high school to join. I actually joined a year prior to being able to go in. So I was still in high school. So my father had to sign the paperwork with the recruiter saying, okay, I'll let him go in. And I'll never forget my dad looking at me going, I went infantry. And the reason why I went infantry is because they shoot a lot of guns. So again, I was just very into wanting to shoot guns. And so that's why I chose that career field in the military. And my dad looked at me, he's like, why don't you get at something that you can use in the outside world and get a job in? And I kind of looked at him, I was like, well, I can, you know, not knowing I would go all this way into having my own gun store one day. I don't think neither he or I thought that would happen, but that I was bound and determined to do infantry. After 4 years in the regular Army, I kind of realized quickly, though, that that's not something I wanted to do for 20 years, as much as I like shooting guns. So I actually switched over and got out and joined the National Guard, and actually did military intelligence for the rest of my career. Sort of 16 out of 20 years I did that. But it gave me that foundation of learning, again, basic marksmanship, uh, safety procedures, things like that that I never was taught. I just kind of learned on my own. So that gave me a good foundation in firearms. The other thing I did, like I said, is I also wanted to get into law enforcement. So I actually joined federal law enforcement, and it was kind of an overlap. So I was in the Guard and Reserves while I was in law enforcement. But I did, that's another 20-year career that I was able to do. And from basically as soon as I was out of the academy and back, I actually started out in Miami. I became an instructor. So I didn't do firearms for a number of years, but I actually was a defensive tactics instructor. But I like being at the range. I like shooting. So that was always just part of my law enforcement career. And then I was actually blessed. I was in Virginia, and I got an opportunity to come here to Georgia at Fort Benning, or Fort Moore as it's now called. We have a advanced training facility. So I got assigned there for my last 6 years of my career, and I was just a full-time instructor. So anybody who would join our agency, or excuse me, that would is in our agency that wanted to be a firearms instructor or a defensive tactics instructor or join one of our SWAT teams, they came to us at Fort Benning and we trained them in that. So, and my primary discipline was firearms. So that's where I got more and more proficient. I mean, I was exposed to nationally ranked shooters that I worked with. And so I just absorbed everything I could. I went to as many instructor schools that I could. I went to a lot of armor schools to learn how to take apart guns. So that just grew then. And that's kind of it's just kind of a building block of just that desire to be around firearms and really enjoying what I did and all that. And I loved instructing. I'm always wanting to learn, and I'm always wanting to impart knowledge. And I always feel like as an instructor, a good instructor, it's a two-way street. It's not just teaching people, but also learning from the people you're teaching as well. Um, so so how did I get there? So basically, like I said, I was in Miami 10 years in federal law enforcement. And once I got married and had our first child, we quickly realized we didn't want to raise children in Florida. So I got an opportunity to move to Virginia. So I spent 4 years in Virginia, a place called the Shenandoah Valley. So it's Harrisonburg, Virginia, not to be confused with Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which I learned quickly were two different places. But while I was there, I was a supervisor, and one of my guys there talked about having a gun store and all that. And I just thought about it. And again, it seemed to be a natural progression for having the firearms is being an FFL. So I looked into it and saw what the requirements were. And that 2 years of the 4 years I was there, is I actually had a store. It's actually in my house is where I started at. So some things, if you look at getting in the business, you may hear people tell you that you can't have a gun store out of your house, but you actually can be home based. It's good and bad. It's good because, like I said, there's low overhead, a lot of tax write offs you can get out of it. But as you start to grow, you realize it's a big disadvantage because now you've got customers coming into your home and ATF when they do their inspection. So it's a two-edged sword, but it definitely got me off the ground, especially with a full-time job. So I did that, like I said, 2 years there. And then when the opportunity came for me to get this position I mentioned in Georgia as an instructor, came down here. We moved here in August of 2012 and got a house. We were renting a house because we were planned on building. And I wanted to do the same thing, kind of grow the business here. Well, first thing I looked at, and we'll talk about a little bit later, is I kind of did an assessment of the area and saw what competition was like. And I won't give up too much. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I felt I had an opportunity to start a gun store, and I wanted to do it out of my house like I did in Virginia until I could grow my customer base. But the county I'm in basically said, no, you can't. You have to be in a commercially zoned location. So you can't do it out of your house. So, okay. Found a nice small little storefront. It was about 450 square feet. Gave me just enough space. Like I said, I wasn't there. I still had a full-time job, so I couldn't commit and grow the business like I wanted to. So I basically would just bring people in to do with transfers. They would order a gun online or maybe even order a gun for me. And once I got it in my store, I'd pick it up from FedEx or UPS. and they would meet me at the store. We'd do the paperwork. They'd go home, and I'd go home, and that was it. So I had no hours. Um, so when I finally finished my career in law enforcement in 2018 in August, I knew that I wanted to grow my business. It wasn't just a hobby for me. Um, so shortly thereafter, I kind of realized that 450 square feet wasn't going to be enough. Um, I had developed a pretty decent base of customers, and just things just fell in place for me within less than a month of retiring. I started adding hours. I went from having no set time. I went to 3 days a week, and that was from August to like December. January of 2019, I started with 5 days a week. So I just kept adding more and more time, and quickly realized that that location was just too small for me. I'd actually had shortly after retiring, one of my first customers came in, and he had about 50, 60 guns that he was wanting to sell. And he asked me if I wanted to buy them. And I was like, well, I don't have the money to buy a bunch of guns. I was just starting out. So I said, well, how about we consign them? So basically, when they consign something, they come in, I take possession of their gun. I figure out what the cost of what the gun is worth, what we can sell it for. And then once I sell it, I collect a percentage, which is I charge 15% now. So the great thing about that is I'm not tying up my money or what money I didn't have. So it's just the customer trusts me with their gun, and I try to sell it. So right off the bat, I had instant inventory. I went from having a small shop and nothing to a bunch of guns. So once I realized that I was kind of outgrown that, I started looking around, and about a mile and a half up the road, I found a larger location. It's a pretty neat little building. It's not the best for a gun store because the building was built in the 1890s. It was an old train depot in my area. And just back up, so in Catala, if you don't know where that's at, which probably none of you do, we're probably 30 minutes north of Fort Benning, Fort Moore, and I'm probably an hour and a half south of the Atlanta airport. So big military location, a lot of military retirees, one of the larger military Army bases in the area. So a lot of potential clients. Um, so I got to this location, and like I said, it was built in the 1890s. It needed a lot of work. I remember going in there to look at it to see if I wanted it, and they had these old wooden double doors in the back of the business, and you could look out. They were open, and you could see the woods behind you. So what would happen back in the day is the trains would pull in there, and they would load and unload freight from there. So it wasn't the most conducive place for a firearm store, because the firearms, a gun store, you need climate control, because you've got firearms everywhere and ammunition. You don't want them rusting or having issues with ammunition because of big changes in temperature. You also need security. That's a huge thing ATF looks at when they come and inspect you. So, but the landlord was gracious enough to let me to spend some money on the front end and fix it up like I needed to, insulate the building, secured things, and then I had to add my security systems and all that. But that actually gave me double. The showroom is actually double the size of where I was at, and then plus I have storage space and some office space throughout the building. Again, it's been a blessing. I'm not going to complain, but it's a challenging building. Like I said, it's just as far as temperature control, it's still hard to maintain. Security is hard to maintain. I had actually almost about this to this day, a year ago, I had three gentlemen that decided to steal a vehicle, and they rammed a Ford F-150 pickup truck through my front doors at 4 a.m. And because I didn't had an alarm system, had camera systems, and the way my store is, I didn't, I'm renting for one, so didn't want to invest a lot into security on the outside, like bollards or anything like that to stop them. So they rammed through the front door, and they stole 31 guns in 35 seconds. So thankfully, the sheriff's department, pretty much the entire department, is a customer of mine. I've donated stuff to them. So even if I didn't, they're very good about it. They don't like crime in our county, so they actually arrested all three of the guys plus one of their girlfriends that was selling my guns on Facebook. So I did add some security features. Again, it's one of those things. I'm now in the stages of trying to find a bigger store and do an indoor gun range and all that. So it was about $10 or $11,000 of security upgrades that I felt I had to put in to a place that I'm renting, but it needed to be done because I didn't want ATF to shut me down. I didn't want my insurance to drop me or anything like that. So I did what I had to do to make it a little bit more secure. Um, so kind of what do we sell? I mean, obviously we're a firearms store, so we obviously sell firearms. We sell basically I tell people anything that shoots or blows up, I try to sell. We do what's called a class 3 license. So when you're a class 3 dealer, that means you deal in suppressors and fully automatic guns or short barreled rifles, short barrel shotguns. So that's a special licensing requirement. So on top of just your standard hunting rifles, pistols, things like that, I get into the class 3 world as well. We sell obviously ammunition because we need to sell something to go bang with the firearm. But we get into a lot of accessories, and when I say accessories, I'm talking anything from slings to scopes to magazines, hearing protection, eye protection, anything like that. Anything related to the firearms industry. We sell for ladies. We have purses that we sell that have hidden compartments for guns. Uh, but we kind of try to expand too. Actually, we got into selling tea of all things. There's a gentleman, a company here called Star Spangled Tea. It's the only patriotic tea company in the area. And I met him at an event. And I'm not a huge, I'm a Southern sweet tea kind of guy. I'm not a big hot tea drinker and all that. But, he had some samples out there, tasted great. And he actually sat there and I have my own Allen's Armory gunpowder tea. So it's his tea, one of his teas, and he puts my label on it. So I actually have my own tea and I sell about 4 or 5 different flavors of other teas there. So I try to give just be diverse in what I do, but try not to go. I never wanted enough, not knocking pawn shops, but I never wanted that pawn shop atmosphere. I don't want to. I don't want to sell tires along with firearms. I wanted to focus strictly on firearms because what I find is there's kind of two kinds of customers you wind up with. You have the guys who I call work in the circuit, which they go from gun store, pawn shop, wherever in the area. They work them all, just try to look for deals on guns. So they don't care about where they go. But then I have obviously a large clientele base of first time shooters, female shooters, children, things like that. And you find a lot of them don't go to a pawn shop to find their firearms. So, we wanted that warm, inviting place that anybody can come to. So we also sell some hunting supplies. Don't get too much into that. Just really right now because of the lack of space. I've kind of got things displayed or hanging all over the store. But we do sell some scents and some lures. There's a gentleman who's a big nationally known turkey caller, if you will. He's won a bunch of awards for his turkey calling ability. He makes his own lines of turkey calls and scratch boxes and all that. So we carry those products. So that's kind of about where we limit it to on hunting supplies right now. I don't get into archery. I can tell you now, if I have looked into it, archery is a different world. Firearms, distributors don't care who they sell to as far as the dealers. They don't have any limitations on how many people in how many stores in a square mile area they'll sell guns to. Uh, Archery is completely different. So you start dealing with them, they're very, very territorial. So like Hoyt is a huge brand. They will only sell to one store in a 50-mile radius. And so there's a big store in town near me that's all they do is archery stuff. So I try to avoid that. The other thing you'll find too is with the archery world is you have to have a very good bow tech, and in order to have a very good bow tech, you have to pay them very well. But so that's kind of as much as I wanted to get into that, I kind of backed off. And even when I grow into a new location, I probably will not get into archery. I don't think because again, it's just if you can't get the major brands, because people you find are very kind of like firearms. Some people like Glock, and that's all they'll carry. Some people like Sig, that's all they'll carry. Well, it's even worse in the archery industry. People are very, very picky about their bows. So if I can't get the major brands, it's going to be very, very hard for me to try to to sell that stuff. So, and I'd rather just focus on firearms. That's what I know. That's what I love, and just be good at, instead of being okay at a bunch of things, I'd rather be really good at one thing. So how do we sell our products? So obviously we sell them in store. The ATF is very strict, very regulated industry. You can sell, for example, at gun stores. You can do events, and I'll talk about some of that in a little bit. But I can't go like to a gun show in Alabama or in Florida. I have to stay in Georgia. Um, so we have our in-store presence, and again, if that's something down the road, we'll talk about more. If you want to start up, you can be a we call it a brick and mortar is what we are when you have a store, or you could be home based. But you'll find some challenges with that. And we'll talk about that. I have a big online presence. Excuse me, I'm tied in with a company called Gearfire, and what they do basically, they're tied in with probably 8 or 10 of my distributors that I have. And I have maybe a total of about 15 or 16, but they're tied in with all the major gun distributors in the country. And what all these gun distributors do is they send Gearfire basically a daily listing of what they have in inventory and what it costs. So instead of me having to, if you come in a store and say I'm looking for gun Z, excuse me, instead of trying to go to 12, 13, 14 different websites looking for it, I can go to this Gearfire site and I can search it on the back end, and it tells me who has that item in stock, how many they have, and at what price. Because some manufacturers, Glock is a prime example, like every distributor sells their Glocks at the exact same price. A couple other manufacturers are like that. Others you'll find you could have a 50, 80, $100 difference in price, especially if one distributor has them on sale because they're trying to get rid of them. So it makes it very easy for me on the back end. If you come to my store and you want a special order something, I can look it up fairly quickly. Also, the advantage of that site I have is if you go to allensarmory.com, it's a canned website. I'm going to change it up in the future, but it fulfills my needs. I had a lot of people. I had a guy yesterday. He called and he was looking for a certain hunting rifle and a scope. And I'm busy. My schedule doesn't work with y'all's schedule. I told him about the website. I said, go look on it, see what you got, and if you got any questions, let me know. And an hour later, there's a $2,000 order that comes through. Just that simple. So that's helped out a lot. And because everybody's web based now, everybody goes to looking for websites. And if you're in the industry, if you're pretty much in any industry out there and you don't have a website and or a Facebook page, people just may go elsewhere. Like I said, Facebook and Instagram. So I'm trying to, and my employees will tell you, I'm trying to get into social media, kicking and screaming. I'm not a biggest fan of it. I will warn you, if you try to get in an industry, and we'll talk about that some more, is you don't have a lot of friends out there. And I'll get into it more, but Facebook is very anti-gun. They do allow it, but they've shut down. If you've been on Facebook a while and you've been in the industry, they used to allow individuals to sell guns on Facebook. Everybody would have a group, or you could post a gun that I wanted to sell, no problem. And then after a lot of these shootings around the country, and they've kind of caved to political pressure, they shut that down. So individuals can't sell guns, and even though they're not supposed to, there's one around here called Heater Exchange, where people, they've got their ways of doing things where they'll post a gun and no price, and then people will comment on it and stuff like that. So there's some workarounds, but if Facebook or Instagram finds out about it, they'll shut them down. But as a licensed FFL, I do have that ability, as part of their rules and regulations. They allow gun stores. However, it's changed recently, but when it started out, you basically started your business Facebook account off of your personal account. So the two were tied together. So I had my personal account, I had my Facebook account for the business, and I also started a kind of a closed group where it was just pretty much the same thing. It was just, you had to be, you didn't automatically get accepted in. You had to apply, and I let everybody in, but it was just controlled. Well, what happened is I would post guns. What I thought was I was doing was posting guns from my Allen's Armory Facebook page into this closed group. Come to find out, I was posting it through my individual. So I got this real nasty, email from Facebook saying you're violating our terms of agreement, and we're shutting down your account. Said you've got 30 days to appeal. So I did. Nice long, and I knew I was wrong. I actually went through and cleaned up. I probably had 80 or 100 posted guns that I had mistakenly posted off my personal account, and I cleaned them all up, deleted them all, and wrote this nice long letter to them saying I'm sorry. I realized I made a mistake. And 15 days in, I got another one saying we're going to shut your account in 15 days if we don't hear from you, which to me was not a good sign because I did respond to them. They just didn't know it. And at that 30-day point, they shut down my personal account. So luckily I was able to archive everything, but you don't realize how in depth you are into a social media platform until it's gone. I did find out though that I have a lot less friends on my new account, which is not a bad thing. So you kind of weed through the ones you like, don't need that person, don't need that person. But where it did affect me was on the business because I posted a lot. And you would get, they have either bots or they have people that they hire that work from home that just go through posts and try to flag them. And I'd do everything I could right, and I would get you violated our terms, and I'd appeal it, and they'd say, oh, we're sorry, and they put it back. So it was just a game with them. But what happened is I had at the time I had about 5,000 followers on Allen's Armory Facebook page. That all went away because I made the mistake of not having any other administrators to my account. And if you guys are wanting to get in the industry, I hope you're taking a lot of notes because I don't want to see you make the same mistakes that I did. But so basically, my closed Facebook page and my open Allen's Army page were dead because you can go to Allen's Armory on Facebook and it's there, but I can't do anything with it because I was the only administrator and that account got shut down. So I did learn from that. I did. So now I have Allen's Armory LLC, which is alive and well, but it's hard to move 5,000 people over to a new account. So that's been a struggle. I mean, I think we're maybe at 1,000 now. So again, if you get in this industry, just be prepared for that. I'll knock on wood, but I haven't been shut down in the new account. At first, they did it a couple times, but I kind of figured out, I have a warning. Anything I post off Allen's Armory, I have a warning that says I'm following Facebook terms, and they haven't done anything to me yet. So, and Instagram, same thing. We kind of haven't had any issues with them in a while. I'm slowly trying to get into YouTube, and people tell me to get into TikTok, but again, I'm kind of hesitant of that. But I'm sure I'll get to that point eventually. And we do some events. We do some. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine. I'm obviously a small business owner, so I'm big about supporting other small businesses. So I have a friend of mine that owns a restaurant, and right before Thanksgiving, what he'll do is called Sip and Shop. So on a Sunday when he's usually closed, he opens up his restaurant and he invites a bunch of other small businesses, and says, you set up a table and you sell your merchandise, and so people can get those last minute gifts before Christmas. Um, Obviously for me, it's hard. I can't just go up and start selling guns. So what we do is we just sell our merchandise. We have a lot of hats, koozies, t-shirts, hoodies. So we'll just go set up that, give out cards to people, and just kind of meet people is what it's all about. So we'll do events like that, just like merchandise only. One thing we don't do is gun shows. Nothing against gun shows. I've done them before when I was in Virginia. I did them and actually did pretty well at them. I just gun shows seem to change over the years. I'll be nice and say there's some interesting people that go to gun shows. And it's just time. My time is valuable. I have smaller children. I want to spend time with them. So, my weekends are valuable. A lot of times I'm working on the weekends as well. So I personally don't do gun shows, but again, if it's something you want to get into the industry, some people I know there's some that's all they do is gun shows, and you think about it, all you're doing is basically working, maybe setting up Friday night and working Saturday, Sunday, but they're traveling all throughout their state, doing nothing but gun shows. So it's there, it's viable, but it's a very cutthroat world. It's very a lot of undercutting. People, you know, last gun show I had somebody that set up a table there, and he was telling me there's another vendor there that walked around the show, looked at everybody's pricing, went back to his table and undercut everybody's prices. So again, that's not for me. It may be for you, and it's definitely doable, and ATF does allow it. So big thing is when I started my business, I kind of looked at gun stores that I've been to in my life and how I was treated and how they did things. And, I just felt it was different for me. I wanted to do something different. Like I said, when I moved here in 2012, I was shocked because I figured there had to be 10 to 20 gun stores in the area because of the military base. But what I found was there was only one large gun store and a bunch of pawn shops, and that's why I felt that I had the opportunity to make do something different. And what we'll go into in the next slide is talking about how to make a difference. But for me, I'm a big believer in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior, and that's the foundation of my life, and that's the foundation of my business. So with that, I feel me personally that my business is nothing more than a conduit to help my community in any way I can. So I do a lot of things for our community. We do raffles. I've got two raffles going on right now, and it's not me necessarily donating guns or giving guns, but I may discount a gun. Um, I'm doing right now. American Legion bought two guns for me, and I discounted the pricing on them. I have a Masonic Lodge that's doing one. We did a fundraiser. I helped out for a motorcycle club. There's a member of theirs, 34 years old. It's got terminal cancer. And he's probably won't be around to Christmas. So that's what I'm big at. Not only just helping them set up, giving them the guns, but I always tell them, let me sell the tickets for you. So I'm big about, just being a part of it, helping sell tickets. So that's a huge thing. And we do raffles, and you name it, we've done raffles. We've done them for sporting teams. I had a high school baseball team in Columbus that did it one year, and they raised after they bought the guns from me, they made over $18,000, and that was the biggest raffle event they've ever done. So we do a lot of sports teams. So anybody that comes to me like wants to do some kind of raffle, we do it. Um, I do a lot of donations. Again, to me, it's about being the hands and feet of Christ. So I have done stuff. I didn't realize at the time, but the boy who was 16 was a customer of mine, and so was his dad. I didn't realize it, but the son at 16 passed away in a car wreck, and God just put it on my heart to donate two guns to him for that event. And I bought the tickets, did the raffle, and raised $5,000 for the family, and they got everything. So that's a big part of what I do. I'm also big with our local first responders and law enforcement. So in our county, the fire departments are all volunteer. So they get a very small allowance, if you will, from the county to pay for equipment, gas, things like that. But the rest of the money that they're short on, they have to do fundraisers. So they do a bunch of fundraisers. I've helped out a lot of them with gun raffles, but I also donate. So flashlights are a big thing for me. I'm just like a fast flashlight guy. I like flashlights and guns. So I donate a lot of flashlights up to. I think there's about 5 or 6 different stations in our county. I've donated flashlights to all of them. I donated. One of my guys who worked for me part time was a full-time sheriff's deputy, and he was wanting a light to have on his gear where he could write a ticket or search a vehicle without using both his hands. And did some research, found a really nice light that clips on your belt or on your tactical vest, and it gives you red light or white light. And so I sat there and thought about it. I was like, I could buy a bunch of them and sell them. And I just like, no, again, God puts things on my heart, and I just want to buying lights for every patrol deputy in the county, and also for the investigators. I've donated custom built patrol rifles for 2 different departments. I donated 3 to each of them because it's just about me, especially my background being military, being law enforcement. I never want to see any first responder anywhere get hurt, but especially in my own community, guys who are protecting me. Like when my store got robbed, I called 911. They were there in probably 30 seconds, and so I want to make sure that none of them ever gets hurt or killed because of a lack of equipment. Um, we do a lot for. There's an organization called House of Heroes down here that goes out and they raise money and they build homes for disabled veterans. So I'll donate a gun for that. Um, Huge. Another big one is called Gold Star Youth Outdoors, and what they do is if you're not familiar with Gold Star family is basically a family whose father or mother died in combat with the military. So now you have children that don't have a father or a mother, and so what this program is pretty awesome. They've tied in. What they do is I think they've got 13 kids this year. They're bringing them from all over the country, and they take them out hunting. They've got them all these sites planned out. They've been working them. They get everything donated to them. They get rifles, scopes, real tree camouflage, puts them in camouflage from head to toe. I provide the electronic ears and the eye protection for all the kids. So it's just the whole community comes together and supports these kids and gives them like the most incredible experience you've ever seen in your life. They take them out hunting. They all wind up getting a deer. They got people who process the deer for them for free. They got people who mount the heads for free. And so it's a huge event. And I donate a custom rifle every year that they raffle off to raise money. So it's things like that. Like I said, it just got again put on my heart to do, and that's what I try to do. Um, we tie in with a lot of events with doing gun transfers. NWTF, who's a big proponent of Georgia Wildlife Federation. I'm support the local chapter here, so they do all the gun transfers through me, and definitely encourage you if you get into the industry and want to get in this is to do things like that, because something as simple as that, doing the right thing, and it's always doing the right thing, is not expecting anything in return. But what happens is every year they come in my store and they buy 3 or 4 guns to add to the event, and then plus the people I meet and the new customers I meet. So it's if you go in not expecting anything, it comes back tenfold to you. Another huge one I got blessed with is called Best Ranger Competition. What this is, because Ranger School is based out of here at Fort Benning, they have basically it's the tip of the spear, the cream of the crop. You have to be a ranger, have a ranger tab, and you have to be either active duty, reserves, or National Guard. But it's 2-man teams, and they compete. It's about 3 days of no sleeping and no eating with a multitude of events. So they came to me, asked me if I could do the transfers for them, and I did. That turned into now I donate 2 guns for them. So now the team that has the best marksmanship scores over three days, they used to get a Daniel defense gun. Each guy would get a Daniel defense gun for free. Now they get one of my guns. So that was pretty awesome. The guys were like, you're a small local guy, military. We want to support you, and they ditched Daniel defense and went to me. So that was very humbling and pretty awesome experience. We also do, like I said, sponsorships, just any kind of organizations. My employees laugh at me. They like try to keep me away from customers sometimes because they know anybody comes in asking for money, I try to give it to them. I even had a young high school girl came in one time and wanted a donation for she was trying to compete as a beauty pageant. So I gave her $100, and she was kind of just like startled. I'm like, no, it's just things like that we try to do. Just anybody we can help. We try to do. We've supported our high school has a bass fishing team, and try to support them. Our shotgun team, and try to support them. So it's just being out there in the community, helping out the community, and again, not expecting anything in return. If it does, that's awesome. That's just a blessing. But it's really just about just trying to help everybody out. And again, you're a small business, so it's a dog eat dog world. You're competing against the big box stores, and you're in online sales. So it's challenging, but you still got to find time to help each other out of small businesses. So example I have is a friend of mine who's a fellow veteran. He makes custom knives. He makes them out of recycled materials. He'll use lawnmower blades, leaf springs off a car, and he makes custom knives. And so when he first started out, I said, and to this day, he has his knives on display in my store. I don't charge him anything for it. I don't take any cut or anything, and I just help promote his business. I've got flyers for there. He does a great event where he'll take like a father son, and they go and have lunch with my friend, and the kid gets to build his own knife. So that's an incredible bonding experience for like a father son. So try to help people like that. Try to do referrals. I don't do gunsmithing. I'm not trained in that. I don't have anybody that I can count on to be a good gunsmith, and I don't have the space to do gunsmithing, but everybody's always looking for gunsmithing work, whether it's threading a barrel or working on a trigger. And we can do some basic things. We can mount scopes, bore sight, things like that. I build my own custom ARs, but if somebody's wanting to thread a barrel for a suppressor, I can't do that. So I found somebody that I trust. And it's one thing you'll find in any business, I think, is, I'm very particular on who I refer, because especially when you get into gunsmithing, the way I look at it, if I send you a gunsmith and he does a horrible job, you're going to come back to me and be mad at me for referring him. So there are a few gunsmiths in the area, but there's only one that I recommend, and he's a great gentleman, and we send everybody we can to him. I don't carry a lot of holsters in my store for the simple fact I have a friend that does custom Kydex holsters, and he does them very well. Great Christian guy, military guy. He does them out of his house. He'll sit there, you call him, make an appointment, takes him about 45 minutes. He'll make you a cup of coffee while he's making your holster. So instead of carrying a bunch of holsters, which I don't have the space for, I now help out another small business and get him work. And then he refers people back to me. So it's kind of, it's a great synergy. So that's something I definitely recommend. All right. So kind of what you're here for, I hope, is, wanting to get in the business. And I hope who all is on here, nobody's wants to be a competitor of mine, hopefully. But the way I look at it, I'm open to competition, because the way I look at it is, some people don't like it. I welcome it, because if you come in the area, then I got to see what you're doing, and I got to make sure I'm on top of my game. I can't let things slip. I can't let my customer service slip. So, we've had one, a big chain out of Florida that actually was progressing throughout the Southeast. They're based out of Gainesville. They opened up a store, I think, in Valdosta. They opened one up in Columbus. They lasted about 6 months. So, and they pride themselves on their customer service, but I guess, I don't know, mine's better. But there's other reasons. But if you want to get in the gun industry, the first bit of advice I would say is don't. Uh, it's very hard. I kind of did it from a different approach. Being a small business owner in general is very challenging. And then you add on taking on the gun industry, you just multiplied your problems. I did the safe route. I retired from federal law enforcement, so with 20 years in, and I was able to get a retirement, get a 401k, get medical, and health insurance for my family. So I have that to lean back on. So when I have lean times, and you will have lean times in this industry, I don't have to. I mean, this is my first time. I've been in business here in Georgia since August 2012, and this year is the first time I'm here. I'm actually getting a salary, and not a huge one, but it's something. But I'm not relying on my business to feed my family, which takes a lot off me, because there's times, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's times when you start your week. I've got an awesome girl that works for me that handles, well, she's my jack of all trades, but her biggest role is handling my finances and making sure that she goes through all the bills and everything that's needs to get paid, salaries and all that, and tells me how much money I get to spend on guns. So she keeps me straight. But there's times where it's like, I'm not going to I'm not going to hold things back. This week started out, it's like, she's like, "Oh, don't kill me, but we're $6,000 in the hole for what's going to come out by Friday." And I'd look at her and I was like, "You know what? I don't care." I said, "God's got this." And guess what? It's Thursday and we've made our money. So, so that's something to think about. Again, it's a very stressful industry. I'm not going to lie. You don't have a lot of friends out there. But if you're going to do it, I mean, I don't want to completely discourage you, but you got to do an assessment of your area. There's an organization called NSSF, and if you're familiar with the SHOT Show, they're the ones who put on the SHOT Show, and they're kind of, for lack of a better word, the governing body of the gun industry. And they will, once you join them, and it's not that expensive to join, but you join them, and one of the things you can get is you can get an assessment of your area. I think it's about $350, but what it does is it gives you a very detailed report, and they'd run their report and find out within a certain mile radius, I think maybe 25 or 50-mile radius, how many gun stores are in your area, and they do this whole demographic breakdown. What's the breakdown of for different age groups for shooters, and I think they pull from hunting licenses, things like that. So you can wind up with a fairly comprehensive report of your area. But assess like I did. I came in, I walked, went around one gun store and a bunch of pawn shops, and I realized, okay, there's room for me. I'm in a separate county from this big store, and people have come and gone. There's other people that are running gun stores out of their homes in the area. But I've been blessed. Like again, customers. I've got a very loyal and dedicated following of people. But do that assessment and figure out, is it feasible? Again, if you've got a lot of competition, it's hard. It's hard to break into. But one way to do your assessment too is go to these stores. I'm not saying buy a gun at each store, which that's not necessarily a bad thing, but go in and see. I can't tell you how many people have come in, how many customers I have that come to me because they hate the competition. And I hate saying that, but they don't. Most of the stores around here don't treat people right, and I don't get it. I tell people it's harder to be ugly to somebody than it is to be nice, and just greeting people when they come in, and people just get turned off of that. So walk into a gun store. Do you get greeted within a couple seconds or a couple minutes? Does somebody try to help you? Do they try to sell you what you want, or they try to sell you what they want? That's a big problem around here. So do that assessment. Licensing obviously is a big thing. So years and years and years ago, the ATF allowed anybody with $90 to get an FFL, and we were actually did it for a little bit. It was called a kitchen top dealer, and usually what you find, and the reason why I had it years and years ago, was to add to my collection. During the Clinton administration, they changed things and they said, we want to shut down a lot of these kitchen top dealers, and that's how I got shut down, because now they required licensing. You had to have a business license. You had to get inspected by the ATF. You had to meet state requirements and city zoning and all this stuff. And that's how it is today. Again, it's not as bad as you would think it is. There's, you hear some horror stories of people, but you submit a license, you can do it out of your house. They're gonna want to see an alarm system. They're gonna want to see a safe where you're going to keep your guns. They want to see an area where you can interact with your customers, but you can do it out of your house. Your husband or wife may not like that, but it's doable. But it's a lot of regulatory stuff. You have to get your ATF licensing, which means they come and inspect your location, and then they say they have a right to come in unannounced once a year to inspect your store. And what that inspection entails is, they want to see your books, your bound book. They want to see every gun that's come in and out of that book. If it's in and it's not out, they want to see that gun. They can do it once a year. They generally average about every 5 years. I'm going, I think, on about year 8, and I haven't been inspected. So if you keep your nose clean, and doesn't help that, the ATF guys in my area are also customers of mine. That kind of helps too. But you're going to need that. It's going to depend on each county or city whether you're going to need special licensing. Again, like I was restricted on, I couldn't do it out of my house in my county. I had to have a commercial location. So that's going to be required. You're going to have to get distributors and inventory, obviously. Again, inventory, maybe not. I started out without it, but people want to touch and feel things. Like, yeah, they can sell cars online, but at the end of the day, you want to test drive it. And some people want to put a gun in their hand. So my theory is to get on with every distributor that you can, because one person has an item, somebody's looking for an item, one distributor has it, the other one doesn't. Pricing may be different. So get on with every one of them. It's free. And they all have different requirements as far as minimum shipping and things like that. And some of them won't sell. If you're a home-based business, they won't sell to you. But then get inventory. And again, it's challenging times now because the market's slowed down, because the economy's is taking a beating on people. I used to say that people would buy gas, gas, groceries, and guns, and we're kind of down to gas and groceries now. There's still people buying guns, but it's definitely not at the level that it was during, like, say, COVID and all that. Record keeping. Best thing I ever heard is if you're wanting to get in the gun industry and you're one of those hands-off people, you want your employees to do the work for you, this isn't the industry for you. You've got to be very hands-on. ATF has what's called a responsible person, which is always the owner, but also it could be your general manager, anybody who can take the fall, so to speak. If somebody's got to go to jail, an RP is the one who's going to go to jail. So if you're one of those guys that think you're just going to start a business, hire some people, and then go off on vacation, again, you may want to try to open up a Starbucks or something, because this isn't the industry. Record keeping is anything and everything, and unfortunately, in this administration, it's even worse. The Biden administration, I'm not trying to get political, but they made it known that they don't like guns and they don't like gun dealers. So what simple record keeping things like a customer making a mistake on a form a couple of years ago was not a big deal. You could potentially lose your license for that if they can prove that you're willful in that. So it's very important that it helps to be OCD and keep detailed records. If you're sloppy, you can't find your taxes from last year. Again, this may not be the industry for you. So make sure you're very detailed in your record keeping. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but again, it's one of these industries we're not well liked. Simple things like, again, Facebook, Instagram will look for ways to try to shut you down. Banks won't give you loans. QuickBooks, for example, well, any of them. Square is a credit card processor. There's a lot of credit card processors that if they find out, if Square or PayPal finds out that you're doing any kind of gun transaction, they actually will seize that money and take it from you. You won't get it. So you find that there are people out there are gun-friendly credit card processors and banks, but you have to look for them. Something as simple as getting workman's comp insurance. Try to get a quote from Quicken, and I was talking to the salesperson, and literally within 5 seconds, I said, "Let's start this out right now. I'm in the gun industry." She goes, "We can't help you." I said, "I know." So that ends it that quick. So be prepared for that. Again, my advice is when you grow, you start adding employees. My numbers fluctuate right now. I've got 4 part-time employees and myself. Take care of your employees, because they're going to take care of you. Because this is an industry where it's easy to get people to steal from you, your own employees. I've had it happen. It's an industry where, for example, like I talked about consignment guns, you bring in a gun and your employee likes that gun, and I get people like estate sales. You get somebody who's like 80 years old, their husband just died, and they have all these guns. They don't want them. So they're entrusting you or trusting me to give them the best price for that gun and make them their money. And that's what I do. Can't tell you how many guns I've seen. I wanted or I did buy, but when I value that gun, I'm going to value what it truly is. I'm not going to go, well, it's a $500 gun, but I'm going to tell them it's only worth 200 because I want to buy it. Because if you're my reputation is everything, and it should be for you as well in this industry. And if you lose that trust in your customers, you won't have a customer base. So you got to take care of your customers. You get those employees that you can trust to not steal money from you, steal inventory, things like that. Guns is a little bit hard, but there's a lot of other things they can take from you. So if you get to that point where you start hiring people, really, most of the people I hire are former customers of mine. They like my store. They always come to me. I like them, get to know them, and ask them if they want a job. Customer service is everything. That's why I feel like I got the big box stores that come to my store. Their employees come to my store to check my prices and go back and reprice their stuff. I am known in the community for 2 things: for my customer service and what I do for my community. And customer service, you think about it. How many of you want to go spend your money someplace and get treated like dirt? I don't. I'll take my business elsewhere. And you'd be surprised at the number of places around here that do that. They just, I'm not going to mention their name, but again, the bigger store in my area, I call it a one and done. They were the it for the longest time until I came around. So a lot of military, a lot of turnover in the military. So they had a one and done mentality. You come and buy a gun, they don't care if you ever come back. I've got a different mentality. I care about each and every customer that walks in my door. I bend over backwards to satisfy them and make things right for them. There's sometimes I can't, but there's very few people I haven't made happy in one way or another. So if you take anything out of this from me is just treat people like you want to be treated, and you would be surprised how different that makes you compared to every other gun store in your area. And again, like for me, I'm not going to push my religion on people, but I will tell people that's what I believe is being in the hands and feet of Christ. You know, I've had customers turn to me and say, "Can you pray for family members for me?" And I do. You know, it just I empathize with people. I just talk to people. Again, it's just getting to know your people and just making a difference in your community. And that's why I say, even if you have a lot of competition, go in there and find something that sets yourself off differently from everybody else in your area. You know, maybe there's a certain line of guns you can carry or certain things. But again, usually if you do great customer service and you help out your community, 9 times out of 10 that'll set you apart from everybody else in your area, because believe it or not, a lot of people don't seem to be doing it. That is it for me. Um, threw a lot at you, a little fast and all. But now it's point, I think, if you got any questions or anything like that of me, I'll be more than happy to try to answer anything I can.